pleasure to work with you, and it's a pleasure to provide you guys with hopefully what I think is a very, very valuable lesson in the meteorological word. Thank you, and have a good night.
And there you have it. Now you have heard from varying levels of experience, expertise, and age ranges. So thank you all for being here. We will open the floor up to any questions that you may have. I would definitely like to pick Mike's mind over there for stuff that he hasn't spoken about yet. So if anybody wants to ask the climate change question, he's open. Oh, come on. It's like crickets. All right, Weather Kid John. Okay. Who wants to take that question?
How common is it for a tornado to form in a hurricane? Yeah. They do quite often. Not in the eye, naturally. What they will do is they'll form in the outer bands, depending on which way the hurricane is moving. We had a hurricane long before you were born called Bertha, and it produced about 5 tornadoes in South Jersey. They generally show up in the northeast quadrant or so in the rain bands themselves, but they can produce them, and they're quite often observed. And you'll notice when there's a hurricane making landfall, the Storm Prediction Center will issue a tornado watch with it.
Okay, there's your answer. Anybody else? Okay, Big John.
Last question. One thing that my son actually brings up an awful lot, the biggest storm that we've encountered in our lifetime with him also, we were out on, and he tells me the date, June 23rd, 2015. One day before my birthday. Before his birthday. And this was a storm that, and all of you gentlemen have spoken about the different storms through the years and everything, and this was something with all the technology there is today and stuff, nobody predicted anything. We didn't receive an alert or anything like that. We just literally... We saw branches flying. We saw branches flying. We saw what we thought was a funnel. It was actually a microburst.
I was off that day.
Can you tell us, like, and I'm assuming you gentlemen look back sometimes when it's like, oh, we were predicting 10 inches of snow and then we got nothing. You look back, what happened? Do you know like what happened on that day that nobody really was able to predict anything?
What,
It turned out to be quite a storm.
was that the derecho? What was the date?
2013, he said, right? No, 15. To what?
15.
June 23rd?
That was a downburst, microburst. I do remember that specifically. Sometimes, forecasting medium range or short range, it's called mesoscale meteorology. And there are a lot of factors that go into it. We have the alert system. We can look at thunderstorms. We can look at complexes and basically see what kind of storm is going to form out of them, what kind of thunderstorms ultimately will develop in the afternoon. When you see squall lines develop, we start looking for those potential microburst areas. But you know what? There are a lot of advancements that have been made, but there are still a lot that have to be made in the future. So that was 3 years ago. We might do a better job now of picking that out as our models are becoming a little bit more updated. But I also have to note that we have to pay attention to old school meteorology and look at observations a little bit more than what some of the community does. I feel like we often rely too heavily on computers. And when you look at observations, you sometimes have a better feel for what's going to happen than looking at a model. So in that instance, a lot of us might have just looked at a model and said, oh, this is what's going to happen, and we missed out.
Joe has your answer.
Yeah, there's another side to that story. There are people who get that information and don't do anything about it. 17 people's lives were lost unnecessarily because they had that information. It didn't come up as a surprise as it did to you. There was plenty of warning. The duck boat never should have been out in an 80-foot lake. Okay. And there are instances when people are warned, they know it's coming, and they still don't take the necessary precautions to make sure that loss of lives is not happening. So there's two sides of that story. And if, as far as, duck boats go, I mean, they're military designed, but the only time the military used these boats was to make land shore. In other words, they were making an invasion, and they took the boats off LSTs, which were bigger boats. They never were meant to be out in the middle of the ocean. They were never meant to be in a channel in Philadelphia where it collided with a tanker, with a freighter. That duck boat should have never been out in the middle of the channel. The duck boat never should have left the port in Mississippi. The duck boats and they never should have canopies. The military style, which they're derived from, never had canopies. And that's more or less a trap to prevent people from saving their lives. You're right. It's another case of just what I said. When people are warned and know ahead of time, there's no surprise, they know it's coming, why weren't they wearing life jackets?
So, since nobody else wants to ask the question, I'm going, oh, yes. Right, well,
No, the bays will fill up first in a situation like that, and that's what happened. The bays got very, very high. And then as Sandy came ashore, the winds, I believe the southerly winds to Sandy pushed it onto the backside of the barrier islands, and those winds got over 75, 80 miles an hour. Yeah. Yeah. So the bays will fill up first, and that sets the table.
Saved us.
Yeah.
Because they stopped at storm surge at second high tide, and literally it emptied the bay. It saved us because it passed north.
right.
Yeah.
So,
It blew the ocean out. Blew the ocean out, but blew the bays in. So you got a double-edged sword there.
one thing you'll hear us talking a lot about, whether it's during hurricane season or in the winter with nor'easters, the term stacking of the back bays. And the worst thing that could ever happen for this area is when you have a long duration, slow moving storm. So you can start with a wind out of the southeast that starts to pick up at 20, 25 miles an hour. Then as the storm gets closer, it picks up a little more. But if you continue that over multiple tide cycles, what happens is that northeast wind or easterly flow, what we call it an onshore flow, that doesn't let up. And the bays aren't able to drain out totally, all right? So a lot of the nor'easters, Jonas, all right? I use air quotes with that. The stacking is a big issue. You'll have 2, 3, 4 tide cycles where the water continues to come in and it doesn't drain out of the back bays, and that's when we're forecasting, we're looking for that system to pull away and the winds to whip out of the northwest and the west, because that helps dry things out. I have many conversations with the OEM guys throughout South Jersey. We spoke here in Stone Harbor with our last nor'easter in March about this. That is a huge concern that we have. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. It's nature. It's going to happen. But be cognizant of that when we're talking about stacking of the back bays and the momentum of a storm and how fast it's moving and when we expect it to depart. And then in addition to that, we also have to look at where the moon is, what phase we're in. Are we in a new moon or a full moon? If you get a nor'easter during one of those two phases, it's astronomically higher, all right? So the impact of a nor'easter arriving on the 15th of the month with, a quarter moon or half moon, whatever, is going to be much different than if it's full or new, because you have that excess water. So
Let me mention something that's happening right now. Right now, the area around Hershey, Pennsylvania, Dauphin County, and those areas surrounding Dauphin County have had 5 straight days of torrential downpours. What do you think's happening right now? They're getting a torrential downpour. Hershey Park was closed for 2 days. You think they want to close Hershey Park in the middle of summer? No, they're just devastated there. And I bring this out because even though we're talking about bay water and ocean water, more people die in fresh water. More people drown in fresh water than salt water. A lot more people drown. Some of these people today, I mean, I can't imagine what's going on with 5 consecutive days of torrential tropical downpour as I'm looking at it right now, and it continues. How much water can they stand out there? I mean, it's devastating, and I know, and, you know, I mean, that may be a small example, but to me, it's a good example. Hershey Park closed for 2 days. They're probably going to be closed tomorrow as well. And that's happening right now. And that's fresh water. Fresh water.
That's incredible.
I just wanted to build on something a little bit about what Tom was talking about earlier when you talk about the Great Atlantic Storm of 1944 and you talk about the Ash Wednesday storm. Statistically speaking, with floods and surges and things like that, we've had worse since then. And I think it's a testament to our lawmakers, our weather forecasters, as well as our local governments. We have dune structures now in place that prevent these types of events. We don't have washovers of the ocean like they did. All of our flooding it comes from the back bays. So you look at this footage of 44 and 62, and I believe the Halloween storm on Long Beach Island had some washover from the ocean up on LBI. I lived there at the time, so I witnessed it firsthand. But that doesn't happen anymore for the most part because we have built these massive dune structures. Back then, we didn't even have a seawall, I think, in 62. So the water, there was nowhere for it, it just came in and washed right across the island. So now when we do talk about raising bulkheads, and we do talk about raising the heights of our dunes, we do it to prevent these images. Because imagine if a storm like Sandy rolled through in 62, or even in 44, I think statistically speaking, with our storm surge, it's the worst ever. We had some flooding here. I had some water in my garage and in our business. But for the most part, I think our dune structures, I think our bulkheads, I think the things that we are doing here on a state and a local level are preventing these major catastrophes like we saw back then. So when your local governments do talk about raising bulkhead heights and things like that, there's a reason why we're doing it. It's to prevent seeing those images again, because wherever you sit on the aisle, sea levels are rising. I think it's not in dispute at this point. And we need to do things to, kind of combat that. And I think that we are. So we don't want to have these images and these stories like that. I'm talking about.
Great input. One more question. Well, Alan got the word goofus from me. I mean, he's more adept to get into it than I am, but I favor the euro 25,000 times over the GFS because, I mean, it's the mathematics that go into it are different, okay, and money. The U.S. model, that's our model. We don't put a whole lot of money into infrastructure for sciences, unfortunately. The Europeans have, almost endless amounts of money, and they are looking to invest in the infrastructure. So the mathematics going in are much better. So the product coming out is going to be, in my opinion, and in the opinion of most, far superior than what we are able to offer.
Okay, so
Let me say
add
that
to
about models. The only model I trust, she's about 5'8", and she comes down a runway wearing something really nice. Models are meant to be guidance. They're not gospel. I hung a sign up in the Channel 3 weather office, and it's still hanging there. It says, models are guidance, not gospel. If you look at any of the models or forecasting instruments, it's still up to you as a forecaster to make your decision. You could look at 10 different forecast guidances. One of them may be an outlier. How about if that outlier turns out to be right and the other 10 or 12 guidances, whether the European or Goofus or whatever, they're all wrong. It's up to you as a forecaster to use what they're telling you. Don't forget, models are just data in, data out. They're computers, and that'll never change. So it's up to you to look at everything you see there and make your decision. And sometimes you're going to go with the outlier and take a chance on that, but that's your job as a forecaster to do. If everybody went with what the models were saying, sir, you could go on your phone right now and see what every model that is being produced can say about the upcoming forecast. You could be your own forecaster if you're going to go with what the models say. The models only help you along your way to forecasting what you think is going to happen.
Okay, so I'll wave the American flag over here as the expat. The cool thing about the European is, while yes, some find it more accurate, and it has been scientifically proven that the European model is a bit more accurate than the comparative American. The European model, and it does come down to money, is privately funded and runs out of Reading, United Kingdom, and is run twice per day for the entire world. Now, in the U.S., in Boulder, Colorado, where our supercomputers sit, and there's also another one in Maryland, I think, down there, our supercomputers also run, in the U.S., a very good GOOFUS, or Global Forecast System, but that's not the only one. See, in Europe, they run one model for the world. Here in the US, we run dozens of models with just about the same computing power. So while the math is a little bit different, if you remember from math class, and in algebra, there's two different ways to solve a formula, and you both come out with the same answer. Well, that's kind of like what the two models are doing. And even though their answers may be slightly different, here in America, we have very high resolution models that update every 15 minutes. And we have other slightly less resolution models that give us extremely accurate forecasts 24 hours out and 27 hours out in advance that update every hour. And so, whereas, yes, the European is great to see, 7 to 10 days out, and they call it the ECMWF, or European Center Weather Forecasting, what is it? Medium range, yes. ECMW, right? Yes. ECMWF, European Center for Medium Weather Forecast, that's it. That's just a longer term scenario. So here in the US, we have so many more tools in the toolkit using the same computer. So I think that tends to be superior for our case, especially when you just want if the thunderstorm is going to hit Avalon or if it's going to hit Stone Harbor tomorrow afternoon. And it makes our weather toolbox a little more competitive.
Nick, I just want to point out one thing. If you haven't seen the GOES-16 satellite images yet, I think that was launched last year. The images that this GOES-16 satellite is giving you are incredible, absolutely incredible. On a full disk scale and also on a sector scale, you can break it down northeast, you can look at the Caribbean, you can actually look at these things. When I came in the Weather Service, we would get a satellite picture every hour. We'd stand in front of the machine saying, it's coming out, and it would come out on a paper fax. Now we get them every couple of minutes. So it's the GOES-16. However, today I read a story moved today about GOES-17. I think it failed.
Oh, it failed.
Yeah. It went up in March, and there was a story today, there may be some glitches to it. But I hope there aren't, because if you don't do anything else when you get home tonight or tomorrow, get on your internet and look at those GOES images, because when the Weather Service puts out these warnings, you can actually see this stuff bubbling like on a stove coming at you. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
It's incredible stuff. And shameless plug for our station. We are going to have access to all that. We start a new graphics system on Monday. I can't wait. It's going to revolutionize South Jersey weather. With that said, you really have to follow these folks on social media. If you have Facebook, we have Steve Sosna, meteorologist Mike Favetta, meteorologist Justin Godnick, meteorologist Joe Martucci, and, well, my friends over here don't have social media, but they're just South Jersey legends in their, in their right. So I definitely want you.
You got a problem about the weather, you call Jim or me and we'll take care of it for you. I just want to know what scares the hell out of you people down here in Stone Harbor. Let us know, I mean, really, we don't know what really is going to affect you, and and we hope some of this information we gave you tonight answers some of your questions, because we don't really know your concerns. We don't really know where you live. I don't know, when I give a forecast in the wintertime, I say there's going to be 4 inches of snow. I don't know whether the school bus can get down your street or not in 4 inches of snow. So I'm not going to tell you that 4 inches of snow is going to affect the Stone Harbor Drive or Dune Drive, because I don't know if the school bus can get down that. I just like to give you the information. You all live where you live, and you know how much 4 inches of snow is going to affect you. It may affect others more than you, and maybe others less. So one thing I don't do, when I see something coming up in the middle of summertime, I'm never going to tell people to leave their hotels and get back home again, because I'm not very popular with the Chamber of Commerce, or if I'm not right about it, I've really blown a bad forecast. So,
And I think that just about does it. Thank you all so much. It was an honor being here. And I got to get these guys some food. Stone Harbor Bar and Grill. Great food. I think that's where we're going to go. See ya. Thanks for coming out, everybody.